I request the panelists for panel 1, Too Little Too Late, to come on the stage. Ms. Abriti Moktan, Dr. Lakpa Tamang, Dr. Avantika Thapa, and Mr. Tashi Chopel Lepcha. Hello, everybody. So we'll be starting the first panel. Panel 1 is titled Too Little Too Late, Climate, Environment and Disasters. The panelists are Mr. Tashi Chopel Lepcha from Government of Sikkim, Dr. Avantika Thapa from Ashoka Trust for Research in Ecology and Environment, Dr. Lakpa Tamang from Calcutta University, and Ms. Abriti Moktan from Pennsylvania State University. This session will be moderated by Dr. Mona Chettri from Reading Himalaya. She will just give us a sense of the format and then it'll begin.
Hello. Okay. Thanks, Anisa, for that. And once again, welcome everybody for our first panel. And sorry about the slight interruption we had with the electricity. We've somehow managed to fix it. All right. So the format for this panel discussion and for the following panel discussions will be that all panelists have been given a a question before this meeting. And each panelist will respond to that question for 5 to 7 minutes. After that, we will be engaging in a sort of a moderated talk, and then we'll have an audience Q&A. Please be very kind to our panelists. And that being the format, the aim of the panel discussion is to ask maybe challenging questions, but this is not about being super critical, controversial, but it's actually for meaningful discussions and engagement as to how different sectors can go forward. So in all the panels, we have representatives from the government, from research, from practice, and a youth representative. So we are trying to present as diverse perspective as possible through our panels. And yeah, we look forward to this really engaging conversations for the next 2 days. So we begin with, I don't know, who wants to go first? So each panel has been given this question. So the question for this panel is that despite growing awareness and lived experiences of climate change and disasters, our collective responses, both institutional and public, often fall short. From your perspective, of your sector, what geographical, social, or political factors keep us trapped in this cycle of awareness without change? Are we truly adapting or simply learning to live with crisis as a part of our landscape? So I'll probably start with maybe the youth on our panel. I'll start with Abriti. Here you have 5 to 7 minutes to respond, and I'll, at the end of 5 minutes, I'll probably start waving at you. Yeah.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Namaste. First of all, a big congratulations to Dr. Mona and her team for putting up this fantastic event and giving us this opportunity. And I'm very honored to share this podium with my fellow panelists. While preparing for this question, the first thing that came to my mind was I really need to bring out some of the lived challenges that I've seen in my recent fieldwork in Nepal and Darjeeling. So I think the first point that I would really want to make is when we think about development, the way we understand development and the meaning that we associate with development and the aspirations of development of the youth, of the older generations from our region is divided on the lines of urban space and rural space. In the rural landscape that I visited in Nepal, you would be surprised to know that there are children who have to walk for 3 hours, 4 hours in a day just to go to school. So what I'm trying to state is the kind of picture we have for development, it is very fractured because of this urban-rural divide. And many folks living in the cities and towns and people like us, of course, we see the challenges and the carrying capacity that we talk about in relation to development. But the real challenges for us is the lack of systems thinking that we have, And in my opinion, it's really important that we bring together not just the ecological side, not just the social side, but the lived experiences, the flora, the fauna, the rich biodiversity of our region, the rich cultural diversity of our region, and to have a holistic systems thinking when we talk about development. And the other thing that I really want to point out is our keynote speaker did mention about the policy issues and the policy aspect for our region. And the key point that I want to make is we really need to come up with flexible and polycentric governance policy mechanism, which is sort of evolving with time and not static, right? And when we are talking about the language that we associate with development, the major factor that we really need to recognize is also the traditional ecological knowledges of our landscape, which is so very rich and which is so very important to deal with the resilience that we are building amidst ourselves in this time of constant disaster that we are facing year after year, be it the Conclave, the recent landslides that affected Darjeeling, and Ilam region was severely devastated in Nepal as well. So yeah, I think that's the point that I want to make. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Okay. Myself, Lakpa Tamang from Calcutta University. I am from Darjeeling, and definitely I will like to focus more on the challenges or the causes which are related to geography, and from the perspective of my research, which I have been undergoing or based on the research experiences. So here, our region, geographically, we can say it is, although fragile, but fragility is more complex in terms of the data. First and foremost challenge which I myself or the geographical research, whatever we have been undertaking or have been undertaken, the local data is one of the major challenge. And beside that, the environment itself is one of the challenge itself, because the river system or the water resources in which our region have. So generally, this has one of the major, you can say, in terms of the environmental crisis or in terms of the climate change impact. So there has been several warnings, like we can say the 2023 Sikkim flood, or the more recent one, that is what we witnessed in this year only in October. So based on our experiences, what we feel or what I personally consider is that locally there should be more research or scientific based learning, and for this there has to be the skill development or knowledge hubs which are locally established, one thing. And along with that, I consider that the awareness or the geographical challenges which our region experience, it is although shared. I'm not talking about only Darjeeling and Sikkim, but it is shared by almost entire Himalayan region. So it is obviously one of the institutional awareness, we can say, is what we are witnessing today. And similarly, there has been several efforts, or we can say there has been individual research which has been carried out in the region to address this challenge. Thank you.
So yeah, I'm glad that geography person went forward, because I only have to say, yes, we live in the youngest fold mountains, and there's nothing that we can change about that. No, it's a blessing unless we know how to live in it. So because the question has three components: society, geography, and politics, I made the decision to touch all three. So societally, I think our behavior and judgment of how we treat another person ahead of us, in front of us, entirely is dependent on how much that person owns, how big a building that person owns, how big a car that person owns. So which instigates the want to have bigger buildings in the first place. The greatest ambition of every young person in this room is to have a 5-storied building and a big car, like everybody else in the world. But we have to sacrifice that dream because we live in the youngest fold mountain in the world. We cannot have that same dream. But we are living the dreams that other people dream of, having a home in the mountains, which is also instigating the greatest change in the land cover here in the hills. Everybody in the world, and especially in India, instigated by the hot burning summers, again climate change, wants a summer house in the hills. So these are dreams, clashing. Their dreams, our dreams. We can't dream the same things. We have to sacrifice our dream as a society, I think. And the other thing is the institutional failure to have regulation about the buildings. People are greedy, that's inherent. So there has to be someone to control how much we can build on every inch of land that is there in these very susceptible hill slopes. That's what we call it here in geography. And also, I think the buildings are strongly, forced by this want to turn. Dr. Mona asked me not to be very critical, but I can't help it. The urge, the contract, the pathway of turning tax money into political funds goes through contractors and buildings. We need to find another way to do that. We can build sustainable buildings and still do that. Yeah? We can have mud houses. They take a lot of money and time to build. Yes, so we are not adapting. We are not learning, but we are only coping with ad hoc means. And one of the examples that I wanted to talk about was, a chain of the dream that we dream of having a big building and a house, and the link to how land is being converted. So this is the story of a lot of people that I know and I have met. To pursue that dream, they sell the land. And they go away, they bring money, and they build another building next to the land that they sold, which is again another building. So,
The
So a vicious cycle, a very, very vicious cycle. And I think the solution is to slow down. We need to slow down. Because we are not being able to implement our planned actions because it's so rapid. By the time a policy is framed and a solution has come up, it's irrelevant because everything has changed. So I think the best solution for now, the instant solution, is to just slow down. And sorry, we have to sacrifice our dreams. Thank you.
Also, just quickly, you can be as critical as you want of each other, institutions, or whatever, as long as it's respectful. That's fine. And thank you. Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you for organizers of this Reading Himalayas for having me here in this very illustrious panel, which I don't belong to. And what I would like to say is, whatever I say is my personal opinion. Although I belong to the government, don't take it as what the government is saying. So that I'd like you to take it with a pinch of salt. So when you're talking about climate change and disaster, and are we doing our actions too short term? I'd like to say both yes and no. I had the good fortune of listening to Dr. Basnet's talk in the morning, and she said some quite very poignant things like climate change is part of our life now, and it is changing in a rapid way. And whatever as Sikkim is doing is something too small. We are all connected, interconnected. Unless very bigger countries do something, we are more or less, ours is a hopeless cause, but we believe in our hopeless cause and we intend to do it. So that we will continue doing it. And talking about our initial question, when I mean to say it is short term, yes, I'd like to talk in terms of probably the government and probably the public also. Government in terms, what happens is when we say disaster management and mitigation, normally what first comes into focus is disaster management. Mitigation is secondary because governments have funds and governments have budgets, and these budgets are normally annual. It is not over a period of 5 years, 10 years. And when you're talking about climate change, you are talking about putting funds into it for over a period of lot of decades, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And our governments keep changing 5 years, 10 years, probably both at the national level and at the state level. So what they basically want is something they can see right now. So they'd like to invest in something which they can put in and show to the public and probably come back to the government. Whereas if you're putting something hundreds of crores in a thing which will take 30 years, 40 years, they are not very interested. So normally funds come for mitigation only after the disaster strikes. So at that period, you can move. Like when we talk about, let's say, the Lonak Glacier outburst, which took 2 years back, the warning signs were there for the last 10, 20 years. Like from 1977 till 2008, probably the lake grew in size by 8,500 acres. So that was a huge sign. But what was happening was the fund was not coming. So just to say also, like probably 2 weeks before the lake burst, I had also gone as a part of a team, not as an expert. I had just gone because I wanted to go there. But the team had scientists from ISRO, IIT, from all over. And there were 2, I think, Swiss scientists also. So they went there, we did the studies, and they were planning to put a basically disaster alert signal machine. But ultimately what came in was an all-weather station. But what happened was a bit late. And after 2 weeks, the glacier burst, and whatever happened after that. So basically what I wanted to say is something short term. But again, yes, we are looking at a longer term in terms that now various studies have been done. And I think right now in Sikkim, we have identified 16 lakes, glacial lakes, which are dangerous. And out of which, again, 4 of the lakes are considered very dangerous. And I think One of them is again South Lanark, one is Gurudongmar, one is Shakochu, and there's one more lake just below South Lanark. So now studies have started. They have started, I think, for one of the Shakochu, which is considered the most dangerous. I think the funds have also come in. So work are now going in for a longer term basis. So that is what I wanted to say in terms of short term and long term goals. And when I talk about socially also public, so during this cloth also I was in Rangpo. So I was there, and whatever mitigation activities, whatever not basic rescue and relief, we were doing that. And during that phase, a lot of it occurred in the river shores area, what we normally call as the Bogar area. And I was amazed to find that I always thought Rangpo was the town which we crossed on the road and the buildings on the side. But when that actually happened and I went down and saw, there were actually 500 houses in the river bank. 500 houses. It's not a matter of a joke, no? You think probably 10 houses, but 500 houses. So anyway, all that incident happened, sedimentation happened, we stopped all constructions. And I come back, and then I recently come to know they have again started constructing there. So that short term, the public themselves know that it has come. Now what they say is, it'll come probably after another 100 years. I'll not be there. So for me, the present is important. So that's what happens. The same thing happened with the 2011 earthquake also. Such a 6.8 Richter scale earthquake. People are saying, now we will not build buildings. But after a couple of years, again, the same thing. It's a process, no? So government, public, I think we both have short-term memory loss, short-term memory. And short-term memory. And then we can add the loss also. Yeah. So I think what we need to do is, and which we are doing now, is also on a longer term, invest more, because the future is at stake. Thank you.
Thank you to all the panelists for their opening remarks. And we just start the discussion here. And I just wanted to follow on, Chopel, with what you were saying about the weather stations being fit up in the glaciers. So I was just curious, who decides? Who decides? Is it the state government? Is it the central government? Is it the scientists who decide what actually gets, what equipment gets fit up there?
It's a collaborative process. So these are glacial lakes is something which I don't think any other states have also done anything about. And it was studies found that Shakochu and South Lanark were among the serious ones. So teams were brought in, obviously the government of India and the state government together collaborate in it. And then they identify who is important, who needs to come. So that was how it was decided. And then they came over and did some studies, the depth studies, the area studies. Yeah.
And also, is the response also mediated a little bit by the location of Sikkim as a border?
It could be.
Okay, cool. So these are just my curious questions, but I thought the panelists did a really good job of bringing different perspectives, which somehow speak to each other. And I have questions. I might pitch the two of you against each other. But I think might be a good place to start with Lakpa, sir, with just about, if you could just, because I think we only see landslides, yeah? We'll only see floods or flash floods, but we actually don't understand the geology, the geomorphic aspects of the region, right? So if you could just tell us a little bit more about the specific geomorphic conditions of the Eastern Himalayas, that, I don't know, does it make it more prone to disasters? Are we more prone to disasters generally? Because is disaster just, is it because of more development? So is it also, or a combination of both? So it would be great for us to understand that.
Yeah. The first response is what Avantika said, 4 mountains. So geologically, Smriti Madam has talked more about it. And if we talk about the geomorphic processes, then there has been continuous studies. There has been studies since one of the major event which strike our region, that was 1968 flood. So that was one major we can say, a natural catastrophic event which was recorded. Before that, there was 1890, 1899 and other, but that was not recorded. And whatever the studies have been undertaken by different individuals as well as different institutions. So the geomorphic process in our region is always active at Fort Mott. It is not only the tectonic which upgraded us to Zone 6, but geomorphically also we are very active. And I can say that what the recent incident which occurred in a very small tributary of Balashan River, that is Rangbangkhola. Many of you have heard about this Tabakosi, very famous for riverside tourism. So when I visited that place after this event, so I was very surprised to see that most of the Joras or the first order streams was reactivated. And when I interacted with the local people over there who were there before 1968, so there was the same incident which had occurred. And the whole area was shifted. There was almost, as per their narration, they said 42 houses were totally damaged and many people died in 68. And this year, what we have seen, many of the homestays were totally damaged. Still their remnants are lying on the riverbed. But what I have seen is that most of the choras which are connecting with this Rangbangkhola, it is getting reactivated. That was the same scenario, or same which has occurred. Like there are many works which was done basically not on that region, but there was work by Professor Lesek Starkill from Police Academy of Science in Bannockburn and other regions, Rongo, River and other regions. So the same thing. And what they have concluded is that this is a continuous geomorphic process. And what the development has done. Now, when we talk about development, that is what rainfall of about 300 millimeter or more has done the devastation or the effect, which is comparatively much more than what about 1,000 millimeter rainfall in 1968 was. So this could be
So what you're saying is that the region is fragile and sensitive anyway to begin with, and now all of this is being exacerbated by incessant rainfall. Like this year we had so much rainfall, right? And you add development on top of that. And I don't mean just like big development, but the things that Avantika and you were talking about, like people building houses and things like that, right? So all of that is compressing and creating very difficult and fragile situation, yeah? So I just wanted to know, so Lakpa sir, from your perspective as a researcher, okay, do you think we'll see more of these climate-related disasters in the future in the region?
Definitely, because climate is what I don't want to say anything, but
You can
we
say
have the area, we have that geomorphic process which is with us, and we are only why I'm saying reactivation of the Joras. That is actually what maybe the climate is. One way it is triggering, or the development which is enhancing it. So I would like you have said. So I would also say that I was very surprised to see that many of the Joras' mouth that was already been widened because of the quarrying. I don't know whether it is legal, government legalized or illegalized. I'm not going into that, but that is also one.
Yeah, and that's something we all see, and it's inevitable.
Yeah.
But I think I just want to link that to Avantika, because you also work at a local level with communities. And this talk of climate, right? We keep talking of climate change, all this language, scientific language. But what I wanted to know was, like, at the local level, and in your experience, do you think we have enough conversations? I mean, I personally feel we don't talk enough about climate here, right? But I could be wrong. But at the local level, like, working especially, and what, again, responding to what Abriti was also saying, at the local level, do we have enough education, conversation on climate change and climate-related natural disaster? Pairo aayo re, we just say that, I know, baad aayo re, that's it. But why is that happening? What could be the causes? How do we adapt? Do you think that those conversations happening at the local level?
From my experience of talking to people for like, I think 2 years straight, especially in Darjeeling and Kalimpong, everybody knows what's going on. It's a trap. Like the question that you have in the first place, to trap. We are trapped. We know what's going on. We know why it's happening. We are just not being able to do anything about it, because the dream is just so big. Like I said, I want to come back to the dream. Yeah, we are trapped. We are in a socio-ecological and economic trap. There's no going out. This is the wickedest problem I've ever seen in the history of literature, socio-economic and ecological literature. It's just going on, and there's no way coming out of it. I have studied that ecological restorations do bring in ecological balance, and helps the marginalized communities, especially helps people to sustain themselves with food, at least the bare minimum, because we are not being able to produce our own food also. Nobody is being able to produce their own food in the hills and in the mountains now. We are all dependent on what we buy and public distribution systems.
Yes. In your opinion, like, the agriculturists, the rural area, the people that you're talking about, do they speak of climate change?
Yes,
do they speak of adaptation, mitigation? What is it? What are the conversations happening on the ground on this?
I tell you exactly what they say. They say climate change. Everybody knows climate change now, especially because there are so many scholars going to them and asking, what do you think about climate change? So they know what climate change is. They show us results of climate change, pest infestations, crop loss, to the rains, the iridescent rains that happen at once and takes away everything that they are growing, and also what forests are going through. There's no fruiting, there's no flowering, there's nothing for the animals to eat in the forest. They come and they eat what we produce, the little of what we produce. These are the kinds of conversations they are having. And they also know that everybody in the plains who are dying of the heat wants to come up here and wants to become my neighbor. That is also one conversation that I have a lot with them, a lot. So, I think I answered to it. Yeah. Are you satisfied?
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
The kinds of conversation.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and I think that links back to what Lakpa sir was talking earlier in his thing. You said that there is local data collection is a major challenge, right? But what Avantika is saying is that people are talking about all of these things. There are conversations. They are showing the evidence of climate change, right? So where is this gap? Why is this happening? What are our researchers doing then, right? Is the question for you. And also then the question probably to Chopel also about what is the government, if I may, what is the government doing? And I think a difficult question is also what happens when there is no real, I won't say real, but good governance in place, right? That we see probably in the Darjeeling Hills, right? So if there is no stable governance, not good, but stable governance, what happens that? So what's the role of the government in converting these stories to actual policy? So if Lakpa, if you want to just respond to what you're saying, and then
by data gap, I mean to say, I'm talking about the real-time data, maybe the measured data or the recorded data. I would say, I think many of you would agree, like the tea gardens in Darjeeling. I will not be able to get inside Sikkim because I'm totally, my research or work is totally focused on Darjeeling Hill region only. So tea gardens, almost all the tea gardens used to measure the rainfall and temperature since long time. And that was one of the first-hand rainfall data which I started my PhD with. But with time, this has slowly changed. Now, it has not been upgraded to automatic weather station, but that recording system, the system, it has vanished. There are many tea gardens which used to provide us data. Now they don't record data. Or if they record, that is either not that much realistic or that cannot be used for research purpose. Now, one thing is data, and another thing is that the skill for which we need to utilize the global or universal or model data. That is also one big challenge. Because I would say frankly that under me, I can only motivate 4 students for a PhD. And Shravan sir is here from JNU in geography, and I am from geography. Sir can have 8 PhD candidates. So there is a huge limitation of this local skill. And what I can see today, all the young generation, so maybe they will be able to fulfill this. Thank you. Chopel sir.
Just going back to what our doctor said earlier, that people are aware, but they cannot do anything about it. That is also one. But I think we also have a ostrich syndrome, that we don't want, we think that nothing will happen to us. That it will happen to other people, not to us. So that syndrome is also there until it happens to you. Then you wake up and then you say, oh, I should have done this or that. But again, coming to your question, what has the government been doing? It has accepted the fact that all these climate changes happening, and there has been practices which it has been doing for the last 15-20 years. Like probably, if you see the forest cover in Sikkim, it has increased by around 2.47%. So there has been policies which you want to do for afforestation in the state, and there are other, like, maybe it's too short, but probably you have 10 minutes where you don't drive a vehicle. At least 10 minutes you stop pollution. Maybe it's too short term. Maybe it's just let's say just a thing we just want to say that we are understanding. Then we have these new policies like that. When a child is born, you plant 108 trees, which the forest department does for you. So those are schemes. In school also has schemes like Meri Ma and Meri Peer. So the mother and the child plant a tree. So these afforestation schemes are also going on, which does help in one way or the other. We are doing, I think, a lot of plantation that has been going on for the last 10-20 years. And then when you look at zonations, mines and geology, I was there probably 20 years back. So when I was in mines and geology, the zonation maps of Gangtok was already there, wherein you had 5 zones where you could build like 2.5 to 5 stories. So those zonation maps, they've implemented it, I think, in all the districts now. All the urban districts has been there. Now I think the plans is to now go into the villages also. So those long-term planning is also there. And then now I think because of the disaster which took place 2 years back, earlier probably our departments would work in silos. So land revenue would do something, science and technology would do something. Now science and technology and land revenue is talking to each other. They are actually sitting down and working together to see how it goes. So, and mines and geology also. So I think plans are afoot and the wheels are in motion. It takes time, but I'm sure we will get there.
Thank you. I'll come back to what you're saying, but I had a quick question for Abriti. As Avantika was saying, like we need to slow down and all of that, but it's the young people who are being asked to sacrifice, right? And also it's the young people who are being, actually, their futures will be the most affected if you think of it, right? So, I mean, and this is a feeling that's around the world, right? A lot of young people are quite frustrated with how things are going. So I'm just trying to get a sense of the pulse of what young people here are thinking. One, in terms of the environment, and do they feel completely helpless because they are not in positions of power, authority, policy making, but they're bearing the brunt of it, right? So yeah, let's just go with that first.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Mona. Well, for me, I think personally, access is the main thing, And yesterday in the mental health workshop as well, we were talking about the intersectionality. And when we are talking about the youth, a youth from, say, like a good family, will have access to the best of education, best of opportunities, will be in the room of people who hold the power. But in the villages that I've recently been to, like for a kid who takes 4 hours to go to a school, literally. So I feel like the divide that we live in our society is increasing so much, and it is very important to recognize that divide and all the things that Sir was putting out about, the government initiatives. And one great thing is like different departments talking to each other. And I would say like that's a great start, but I think that has still not panned out on the ground level, Like, for instance, Avantika was also pointing out to her interactions with the villagers, the local communities. And let's talk about like human-wildlife conflict when the agricultural produce, the little that they produce is, they face a huge loss because of the wild animals that are entering their agricultural land. So, of course, like there is a shift of, I feel like the people in the rural landscape, the kids, their families, they want them to do better and then send them to the towns, right? And the people who are in the towns, they're getting sent off to the cities. So I feel like there is a very circular migration that we see not just in our region, but also globally, right? And I think it's very important to recognize that intersectionality within gender, within class, within the youth as well. Yeah.
That's a really, really important point, because I think even for us to be here in this room, to be speaking in English, it's a sense of privilege, right? And that's what, what you're saying, there's scales, and also there's scales in how disaster is experienced, right?
Of course.
How the people in Rongpo, Singtam experience the cloth is very different to how people who are living in high rises, who are living in slums, it's a very different experience. So that sort of gap is there, right? But coming back to just the disaster, I just have a quick question for Chopel. Does the government find itself it's always in the back foot because we are constantly responding to disaster, right? Or are we like actively prepared?
I think our disaster does not happen in a small scale, it happens in a huge scale. And for a government to mitigate a huge disaster is not possible. So we are moving towards it. So normally we are in the back foot because immediate relief has to be given, immediate rescue has to be given. So, but for the last 5-10 years, there has been a lot of drills going on. So even the 2023 one also, we had I think that drill which took place was a godsend, because when we did that drill, we actually started, we were actually ready. So at least Singtam people, when the siren started going off that night, probably around 1 o'clock, they actually moved to the higher places. So that drill had now come into place. So similarly, every year they're doing it. So this year also, they take 2-3 disastrous syndromes, like probably a landslide here, or earthquake there, or flood there, or something like that. And the concerned districts acted out that way. So the preparation level is now there. It is going down to the school level also. So we are in a way not as prepared as probably Japan is when it comes to earthquake, but we are on our way there.
I just wanted to quickly go back to Abriti. As an older person, I'm quite curious to know where do young people get the information about environment, climate, disaster response, all of these things? Is it because I don't know, do they read newspapers anymore? I mean, maybe the audience can enlighten me whether they where do they get this sorts of information about these sorts of things, or is it just social media? Because I just want to think through what are the effective ways of getting information, ideas out to a wider group of people. Or is it just Facebook and not even Facebook? Now it's TikTok. Or what is it? Instagram. Okay, is it?
TikTok is there.
Yeah. I think I'll again draw in my experiences from my recent visit to Nepal and some of the remote villages in Darjeeling. There is this increasing sense of alienation, the younger generation have, that the older folks talk to me about, that they are getting alienated from the land, from the culture, from the identity. But at the same time, that's one part of the story. But the other part of the story, I increasingly see a resurgence of cultural and identity-related thought processes, as well as like livelihood strategies amongst the youngsters, be it, especially in Darjeeling, be it with ecotourism, increasingly there are folks interested in bird watching, nature walks. So I feel like the younger generation are now increasingly tapping into the local resources, the local biodiversity, the cultural diversity we have in our region to sort of earn a livelihood out of it, right? But at the same time, they are also aware of the kind of challenges that we are living in with respect to the developmental activities that we have, with respect to the climate change, and how do they actually experience that is, I think, through the first-hand experiences that they see in their families, right? For instance, increasingly the traditional cultivation of buckwheat or other varieties of traditional crops are being replaced with cash crops, right? And so, but again, in Darjeeling and even in some parts of Sikkim that I've done my fieldwork in, the cash crop is not getting them cash anymore, right? So I feel like there is a constant flux, and also the fact that the younger generation are increasingly aware and are with the kind of coping strategies and mechanisms that we have and that we implement every day, I think, and with the theories that other scientists have put out there, those everyday learning and coping strategies become adaptation in the long run, right? But I think in our region, with the kind of carrying capacity and with the planetary boundaries that we were listening to from Dr. Basnet in the morning, it's imperative for us to recognize those planetary boundaries that we are crossing in our region as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Abriti. Just a quick question. So these bird watching young people, don't they want to make 5-story buildings anymore? Or they just want to, what's the aspiration there?
Well, I don't think so that I would do a justice of representing all the youth. But of course, I think, we have access to...
I don't want to put you in a difficult position.
No. We have light over here. I have access to a computer, Wi-Fi. And when I go to these villages, they want that too as well, They want to, we talk about carbon footprint, we talk about, conferences, we travel world over. But, that guy who was my field guide in Majua in Darjeeling wants to go out too, wants to have a good living, wants to provide for his family. So that is why I think I'm constantly harping on right from my opening session about the intersectionality, about just the meaning of development, for villagers who don't have a road, obviously they want a road. And here, of course, we are talking about we shouldn't have any more roads. But there are still some of us, some of our youths who are like walking 4 hours a day to reach a school. And I feel any society, any civilization has done well because of access to education. Education, right? The literature, the language that we speak, our culture. that is the main fuel for any society, any culture. So I think that's why, like, I feel there is a huge divide. And that divide I see increasingly among the local communities residing in urban landscape like us and local communities who are in the rural landscape, And in Nepal, like, fantastically, one of my key respondents, she was saying, विकासले विनाश भयो. Because it is सबैलाई चाहिन्छ तर विनाश भइसक्यो. But then when I crossed 7 landslides and walked for like 2 hours to reach this village, they want a road, functional road, They want electricity. So I feel like we are still struggling with some of the basic things that is required for mankind, for us, but also on a larger whole that all of my fellow panelists are putting out there, we also need to recognize, like, I feel like there has to be a balance out there.
Yeah, and I think that the bigger question is, how do we strike that balance, right? Because as you were saying, we have roads, so we are like, okay, maybe we don't need, so there's such a how a certain area has developed in comparison to other, right? And I think that's creating a lot of social transformation, but also a lot of tension within communities. And I think these are things we'll touch upon in the few other panels that we have over the next days. But I just wanted to quickly go back to Avantika also, and just want to know your experience, right, about talking about disaster. Is resilience? We keep telling people, like, or we take pride, that we are resilient people, we are resilient communities. But does resilience, is it just coping? Is that what people are doing, or are they actually building resilience of their own, or is it just people are coping with whatever is coming in front of them, whatever disaster, whatever, flood, famine, whatever is coming? Is it just coping, or is it actually resilience?
I think a lot of coping strategies make you resilient. So resilience would be called, if in a span of, I think, 25, 30 years, if a person persists his or her ground, I think that would be called resilience. But until then, we are just coping every day. I'll give you an example of a person that I meet during my feed. I meet so many inspirational people. So one of them runs a permaculture farm. And he's not big. He does it in a very subdued way, a very small place he runs. And he lives in a small house. He runs a 2-bedroom place. And that, he says, I will do anything to stay here. He's been to other countries. He's worked his ass off. He came back with some, something to start with. And he started. And he says he had so little money to start with. He turned towards mud and bamboo that were freely available around him. So he almost started from zero after spending 20, 30 years in a Gulf country. He came back and he said, now I'm not moving from here at all. I'll grow my food, I'll live here, and I'll stay here until the day I die. I think that's resilience. But in between, he did a lot of coping strategies. He worked as a tour guide, he drove cars, he worked as a carpenter, he even harvested betel nuts, this and that. So a lot of coping mechanisms he adopted to become a resilient person now. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I have so many questions, but maybe we can continue afterwards. Because, I can see the links everywhere, right? But I think we'll open up the floor to the audience. Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much for the wonderful session. So now let's bring the audience in for the questions as well. So if anyone, okay, we see a hand raising on the right. If one of the volunteers could give the mic. Yes.
I'm not sure whom to direct this question to, but I feel like how Avantika was saying that consumerism has been a major part of why things are changing the way they are changing right now. But how do you hold the general public accountable for it when you have industries and like the top 1% of the richest people in the world have more carbon emissions than a lot of other people combined? So why does it always come down to, okay, we're the public, we're the change makers over here? If youth is facing the brunt of all of it, like how does the youth even have an entry point into changing or holding anyone accountable who's done it at a very massive scale? We're just sweeping things that are probably not in our control anymore.
This question is directed to me, right? Yeah. So yeah, I will take it as you did it to me. So, do you have a store that you visit a lot, like a clothing store? Someone you know, like a shopkeeper, like your favorite clothing store or your sneaker store?
Maybe Nike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to have a lot of them when I was in college. They used to bring me what I like. Yeah. So I was actually demanding commodities that I like, and the shopkeeper brings it for me. So why do you feel powerless here? I felt very powerful when I did that.
No. What I particularly meant to say was it's not just like, let's say, the apparel industry or anything, but it's also from the energy sector as well. So you have your petroleum, coal industries who still part of majority of the emissions that are happening, and like the switch isn't technically going as fast. So in that aspect,
Yeah, we are talking about scales. Now you brought in petroleum, yeah. So yes, that's a very big fight. You know, there are plenty of. I think the most relevant solution is by a person called Manoj Bhargav. He has a project called Billions in Change. Everybody should see a YouTube video on that. And there he has displayed the kind of innovation that can change this fossil fuel, our dependency on fossil fuel. But again, like you said, you know, the people who are running the fossil fuel business just don't want to lose their power. And, you know, they are the ones who are in power right now. But I think slowly we can definitely change. You know, taking an electric car instead of a petroleum, yeah, that is what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for an efficient electric car that I can bring to the hills. Until then, I'm still taking the public transport. So I think small changes, small things we can definitely do. There's no need to feel powerless. Please.
Yeah. Any more other questions? Let's try to keep the questions brief. You can carry on the conversations later as well.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My question is for Mr. Chopel. I really like the points that you put forward. Very practical aspects. I can understand how it comes from the government aspect as well. Of course, it's free. Anybody's free to answer this question too. One is, we're talking about GLOF a lot in the larger disasters that happen. But I'd also like to bring to your notice that there are smaller things happening as well, smaller disasters. I'm from Pakyong. About 2 years ago when I was home, we had a hailstorm. It was for such a short period of time, and it happened so in such a short span. But my 65-year-old aunt said, "Ki, right? And a lot of damage happened because of that as well, right? Tanky or bigrio, god or bigrio, you know. There was some damage to my house as well, but we benefited because we had insurance, right? And one of the reasons to build resilience in a community is how do we make our communities, our households resilient is probably maybe introducing schemes like insurance to families. You know, that was one aspect I wanted to bring forward since the topic of this conversation was disaster. Second, sir, since you're from the education department as well, I wanted to ask, like, what are the actions that are being taken by the education department with respect to building resilience among the children, among the youth? And if there are workshops that are being done with respect to disaster management, how do we, because I'd seen a few books in the past regarding disasters and all that. So 2 questions here, finishing it up. One is regarding how are we building resilience in communities with respect to this, and second is with respect to education. Thanks.
With regards to crop insurance, agriculture and horticulture department looks after it, and they keep doing these awareness programs. But again, one of our problems in Sikkim is people in Sikkim are not ready to put in their money. So they don't want to go towards crop insurance. I'm sure many of them have done, and like your family did, and at least that benefit has come. But there are many who think that government will provide. And what government provides normally in such calamities is just, it's not compensation, it is basically relief. So the quantum is not what is expected, what they get. So normally they think they should get for the entire crops, but it is not. It is, there's a certain, as per the disaster management relief guidelines, there's a certain amount, like so many hectares, this much amount. And that's a very meager amount. Basically, it's just to help them. So that difference is there. And so the awareness should go on, and the farmers should also learn. I'm sure many of them have now taken up this crop insurance. So that is one thing. With regards to in the education, our syllabus does have such chapters there. So wherein they talk about these disasters and how they should do and how they should react to it. And the students also, we have fire department going, we have the NDRF, we have the SDRF. They keep going to the schools and doing these rescue trainings to the children. So they are also learning. So they know now, like in case earthquake happens, you go down under a table, you don't run out. So those things are also percolating to the schools. So compared to what it was before, I'm sure we are much more prepared right now. And again, just I forgot to mention, like I was saying earlier, 2011, I was there in Chungthang during that earthquake. And before that, we always have a pre-monsoon preparedness meeting with all the sectors of whichever sectors are there. So that time what had happened was we had a meeting with the GREF, Border Roads, ITBP, and our departments there in Chungthang. And that was just it, like we should do this, and this should happen. But when the earthquake actually happened, everything collapsed in the sense that all access to all parts of North Sikkim immediately collapsed, right from, let's say, Naga, Singik onwards, right up till Lachen, Lachung, everything was locked. So suddenly it was every person for himself. So everybody was working, but in silos. They were opening the roads. Army was opening from one end, GREF was doing from other end, the hydroelectric project was doing from one end. So everybody was doing. But now there is a difference. Now when the training is given to all the departments, now everybody knows what to do. So immediately if there's an earthquake, there's a certain control room, everybody has to reach there. And then all the measures have been pointed out, what are you supposed to do. So that way, the preparedness level has increased manifold times within the last 10 years.
Okay. Do we have another question? Yeah. And in the interest of time, let's just keep the questions brief and direct. Please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know you are running short of time, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. Hi, my name is Shushma, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Economics from Bharati University. So my question is open to any of the panelists. You can answer that because I've been hearing the word development quite a few times. So I think I try to teach development economics, or rather say I try to learn development economics. So my idea of development, because it has evolved over a long time, period of time, in the 50s and 60s, we usually correlate development with, only GNP, the quantitative figure. And then Amartya Sen came in with his social choice theory, and the human development came into place. And then now the environmental aspect is also have been kept in the environmental sustainability that we talk about. And when we talk about, I'm going very fast. So when a first questionnaire came up with sustainable development, like the present generation will also have access to the resources without making the future generations to compromise on this. Like Mona was asking, like, why should the youth be asked to, sacrifice their aspirations and needs? So my question is like, how do we come up with a solution? There's a nexus, like Avantika quite correctly pointed out that there's a nexus among the contractors. Abriti talked about the field experiences that you had in Nepal, in Ilam, and in certain pockets of Gangtok, like when they talk about development where there's no road availability, it's very context specific. Where there's no school, there's no education, they want a school to be built up there, right? And perfectly pointed out by Lakpa. So real-time data is the data, means data is the new oil that we have come about, right? And then there's a thing about from the government front, right? With resources in the economics, the first thing that we talk about is that human wants are unlimited and resources are very limited. So how do we trade off that, balance it off,
without sacrificing, like the present generation also do not have to sacrifice, as well as the future generations as well. Like, how does the government come into play in, utilizing whatever resources, limited whatever be, to fulfill that, to trade off this balance between, development as well as environmental sustainability? Thank you. That could be the brief I could. Thank you.
Okay. So anyone wants to take up that question?
I'm the moderator. No.
Yeah, Avantika.
No. I want to talk about the sacrifice part of it. Have our generation before us not sacrificed enough for us to be here today? Right? They sacrificed a lot. I think the solution is just sitting down with the elders in your house and ask them, please go back and ask them how their life was back then, when they were 20 years old, how their life was. I think we are just being ungrateful if we want everything. And the solution is to talk, go back to your elders and ask, how was your life back then? Boju, Baje, Aja, Aji. So we will be humbled, truly, very truly. You will want to kiss their feet and hands for giving us the life that we have right now. So maybe if one sample size, if your Aja Aji is not enough, maybe you want to go and talk to more Aja Ajis, for more data to convince yourself. But please do. Please don't leave a chance to do that. I think a lot of mentally peaceful solutions are already there. Just talk.
Anyone else wants to add something? Yeah.
Just a quick point. Thank you for your fantastic question. When you were putting your question out there, I got reminded of this book called The End of Sustainability by Benson and Craig. And I think it's a wonderful, fantastic book. So when we talk about sustainable development, there is this fallacy of how we think nature can provide endlessly, but that's not the case, right? And I think to work toward that solution, we will not have a straight out answer out here as well. But I think it's important to recognize that the natural capital, that the ecosystem services that we talk about, we need to change and relearn and rethink about some of the big term and definitions that we work with, right? We need to know that nature is not, the natural capital out there, it's not endless. And I think the first step starts from there. Yeah, that was one point I want.
Okay. Anyone wants to add something more?
Yeah. Since my panelists have put me in a tight spot, somehow. No, I think it's a very interesting question. I think all the panelists we're all grappling as researchers, as individuals, we're all grappling with this idea of development, right? But I think for me, as a researcher myself, is there even a thing called sustainable development? At least the kind of development that we see, even things that we see like ecotourism and all of that, is that even sustainable? So for me, the idea of development itself or sustainable development as practiced in the region is highly problematic, right? But yeah, that's my 2 cents. Do you want to say anything?
Anyone else? No? No one wants to take anything on that question? Okay, we'll have some other questions. Let's take someone from the middle row. Oh, just a moment. Dr. Lakpa will add something on that.
So here one more thing which comes when we try to see the tourism as one of the driver. So like Sir has said, 500 houses on the riverbed. So I get really surprised when there are people say ki, river tourism, riverside tourism. And the government is, when I was coming from Siliguri today morning, there were boards by the highway authority, खोलाको छेउमा जानु खतरनाक हुन्छ या त्यस्तो के लेखेको थियो. So is it safe to stay inside the river or on the river bed?
But you still want tourism?
No, there is nothing. We cannot proceed further. But one thing which I would like to add here, since Sir is also from the government. So, like I have been hearing about this flood risk zonation, which is more applicable to the Gulf also, and especially in our region, like what Tista has experienced. So, flood risk zonation, it has not only remained as a dream for our region, but I was very surprised when I read that only 4 states in India has adopted till now. And for the mountain region or hilly region, now already the CWC has stated in their guideline, it has to be based on more scientific evidence-based mapping. So are we ready to have that? Because the future about whatever disaster, environment or climate change is actually, what I mean to say is we will be with this region. So how we will adapt with this region? So obviously from the institution, this is one thing which could be looked. Obviously, Sikkim, I am very happy to know about this donation mapping and other. I don't know about West Bengal because we all know. So, thank you.
Yeah, and just to add
Okay, yeah, please.
just one more
please.
part, although it may sound small, but like we now have every 6 months the departments are supposed to show their what they are doing and at the highest at the state level. So now when we are making our presentations, we have been given clear guidelines that you also put what your department is doing with the sustainable development goal, which is in respect to your department. So we are talking about it and we are acting on it. So how are we at the national index? How can we move forward? So we are moving towards that also.
Yes. Okay, let's take some more questions. Let's take one from the middle row. I think we haven't taken any, and then we can, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, all right. Sorry.
Hello. Yes. I'm Finzo, Edwards Foundation, Darjeeling. My question is directed to Amrupani. Once again, I met her before this panel discussion. Baini was talking about this contractor building nexus, political nexus, and also talking about resilience. And since Baini and we come from the same area, Darjeeling, and we have some kind of a local government out there, GTA, and the last 2 disasters which we had, 2023 and recently, which we had the landslide which happened recently. The local government was a complete failure. So I would like to ask Baini, what policy matters would you suggest to GTA? Mitigation as well as rehabilitation. What kind of suggestion would you give to them so that we don't face this kind of disaster again?
I don't think I'm competent enough to answer that question, but I'll come prepared if you fix a meeting. I'll do my homework. But yeah, I would really like to start with the building regulation. Yeah, that is the need of the hour. We need building regulation now and now, instantly. We need to stop building and slow down. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, if I may, I think this conversation is not going to end here. That's the sense I'm getting. It can continue in lunch. In the interest of time, I'm so sorry, in the interest of time, let's take one from the middle row, please. Hello, I'm Usha from Sikkim. I just wanted to make some comments. And I would like to say, that here in this audience, we need to ponder on the definition of poverty. Whether in this sphere, in this area, I feel we are more, the term is not a very nice term, it's entitled. The definition of poverty here is not what is the definition of poverty outside the boundaries of Sikkim Darjeeling. So there itself, we realize that we are already very privileged. And coming to the second point, walking to school was, my husband walked 7 kilometers to school and back in Lachung. I walked 2 kilometers and back in Bombay. We are still here in the same room today. So walking means there was a road. It's just the need to get your education and move. So it's a motivation inside oneself, So I feel that where there are areas of poverty, the kind of poverty is something we need to reflect on. Also, coming to research, Avantika was saying that, researchers are coming and asking questions, so you know what is climate change. But the researchers that I have always had a problem with was everyone comes and, again using a word, exploits the traditional knowledge of the community and goes back with their PhDs. And that information often never comes to the policymakers who can actually give back the results of all that research of PhDs and all, which would have enhanced the quality of life. That is not happening. That needs to happen. If you come back from maybe Pennsylvania and go and stay in the village, use that information to influence the policymakers. So, here in the government, I feel, we have turned the definition. We have to look at it in a different way. We say kacha house and pakka house. A kacha house which has survived for centuries and maintained the people, kept them warm in winter, is now turned to a pakka house because the government is giving schemes. People have been made dependent on the government. And very valid points. Cement house. Is there a question approaching? So I said I'm making comments. It's a comment? Yeah. Okay. So that's what I want. Anyone wants to reflect on that, or is that anyone wants to add something to that? What ma'am has pointed out, very rightly so. The data, the information always gets taken away, and that is what Reading Himalaya is also trying to do, to bring it all together. All of us are from the region. We are trying to get it back, trying to get the knowledge being shared with the people, from the people as well.
I'd like to advertise very quickly what me and my team and my boss in Chettri we are doing. We are building a website to give back everything that we have collected so far to be accessible to everyone. We are working on that. And I also think that our methodologies the scientific methodologies were actually made to cater the kind of data that was available in the Western countries. We are yet to find methods to culminate the traditional ecological or whatever knowledge with the Western kind of science that we do. I think that this has come up thrice in this conversation. There's so much information, there's so much data, but they are not compatible to each other. I feel that problem, I come across that problem more often than ever now. Whatever analysis, whatever software, it's all made to analyze years of longitudinal data which we don't have. Right? So I think it is also a great challenge for all the researchers who are here to kind of come up with, to develop new methodologies to be more holistic and be less biased.
Yeah. So in the interest of time, last question from the middle row, please. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, just to follow up on Usha ma'am, policymakers also need to listen to researchers also, no?
Yeah.
So, that also doesn't happen yet.
Yeah, I want a mic now, so.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry, I waited. So,
1 second.
can you allow me, please? Yeah. I'll actually make my question short.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, by virtue of being in this room, all of us are, to some degree, as somebody says, privileged and elite. We are not the ones who are facing the consequence of climate change. I'm wondering whether, and neither are we policymakers, let's face it, none of this is ever going to, affect policy. I wonder, so the question is, do we need to rethink how conferences are done? I wonder if next year we can do this conference, in a way that other people can, the real people can get involved, maybe, or Kholako Bogarma, speaking in a different language, where people can listen. And I'm wondering whether electoral politics and democratically elected government is the problem. Do we need to rethink how policy is made? Because electorally elected government will always do what it needs to do to win the next election. And I wonder whether that is the core of the problem.
That could be the core of the problem, Vinayak, but I think that's a discussion and a longer discussion for a later time. But maybe we'll quickly go to Sudeep.
Can someone hand the mic to Sir, please? Yeah. From the side,
My just an observation. The last time there was some, impact on climate was the COVID pandemic. When the world was at a standstill, it seems many parts of the world there was some impact of the pandemic on the climate. It was getting better. Maybe researchers could focus on some of the aspects of how we could slow down our lives and, focus on the lessons from the pandemic and as well as climate change. That's just my observation.
Thank you, Sudeep. And I think we close the session.
Yeah, we'll close the session. Thank you so much, everyone, for engaging, and you can carry that conversation on later in lunch.
Thank you to all our
But
panelists.
before that, we'll have a group photo.
Yeah. But also just want to thank the panelists here for really engaging conversations. And I think the lesson what I go back with is that we will never learn, right? We'll continue to make the same mistakes as we did before, but hopefully we'll slow down, Avantika. Yeah, okay. Thank you. And there's going to be a group photo now. So I think